We've got a nice bonus episode for you today to highlight the Zag and Holiday Trip Giveaway. You can head over right now to wetflyswing.com/giveaway to enter to win a local guided fly fishing trip, a $100 gift certificate from Zag, and some other goodies right now. That's wetflyswing.com/giveaway. The giveaway ends tonight at 11:45 p.m. and we'll be drawing the winner tomorrow live on Facebook. That's wetflyswing.com/giveaway.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Today's episode is sponsored by Zag.Fish, who creates ethically sourced premium fly tying materials with their 5D brushes. These are the Fairflies brushes that we've talked about before. Zag.Fish is the place you can go to pick up Fairflies products and the other stuff they have going on in the fly tying niche. 5D brushes contain the perfect proportions to tie great streamer, bass flies, saltwater flies, and we're going to be using some of these flies even more as we do some of these saltwater trips. You can check out Zag.Fish right now by heading over to wetflyswing.com/Zag. That's Z-A-G. Today, Jeff Coffey, chief scientist at Zag.Fish, shares the update of what they have going with their unique non-toxic and environmentally friendly materials. We find out about some of the downside of the current natural materials market and what they have going to be that's going to be changing the game a little bit here in the fly tying space. We talk about some of the chemical processing that's involved in current natural materials and some of the stuff and what's got Jeff fired up about changing the game. Jeff also talks about where they are going in the future in fly and conventional products and the brand new fly tying vise they have that they're pretty close to launch. Pretty interesting. This vise is a unique spin on what's been going on here of late, and actually is something that I think we've been talking a little bit about it in the past, and you're going to get a kick out of it today. So here we go. Jeff Coffey right now from Zag.Fish. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, Dave. How you doing, man?
Good to have you back on. I was just looking.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays to you. We're getting close. We just got back from a little holiday trip. We're doing a holiday giveaway, so to speak, that we're going to talk about today. And I wanted to get a quick update. You've got Zag.Fish.
Yes.
You're on as a sponsor this year with Fairflies and everything you have going. Give us a little update, because I think it's been a little while since our last podcast we did. What's been going on? Basically, we're kind of in December the last few months. What have you guys been up to, or maybe the last year?
Oh man, it was a crazy year. 2 years ago we moved out to Chattanooga, Tennessee, getting the company kind of reestablished and set up out here. But in the middle of COVID, I think we launched our conventional brand, Pivot, by turning on a new team in India, actually in Goa, India. And, trying to travel in pandemic times and set these things up over video. It's been wild. But our biggest push, Wasatch Tools. We acquired Wasatch about 4 years ago, and taking it from a handmade in somebody's garage, literally that's how Wasatch was made for 50 years, to we bought about $500,000 worth of equipment and brought everything in house, and we're changing the tool game from Chinese purchased tools to just really high end stabilized wood and brass and gold. So it's been a lot of fun. Me, I geek out about materials. This year it's really been geeking out about tools. Every angle, why do we use it? Do I need a whip finisher? Does it really do something better? That's been our real focus. So we've invested heavily, and we're launching a brand new concept for a tying vise.
That's right. That was the one thing I know. So you can talk about that a little bit now. Is that
I can talk about it now?
Yeah. All right. Well, give us an update there, because this has been I've been thinking about this.
Yeah, we're really excited. We actually showed it off a little bit at ICAST. Not really fly oriented crowd, but we've got back orders before we even launched it. It's I call it, I don't know if I'm allowed to use other trade names, but we call it the Bang & Olufsen version of a fly tying vise. nothing for materials to catch on, no tools required to run it. And it spins on perfect. It's so well balanced that it'll spin for 2.5 minutes on its own. So, when you're thinking about tying up your streamers and spinning your thread to the back and tying up, larger flies, the ability to hold a shank has always required extra tooling, or swapping out your jaws. We eliminated all of that. And the other thing we looked at is how many people over tension their vices because they just really don't know how to tension them. And you crank over that lever and you're actually putting a crease in the back of your hook. So you hook into your PB and the hook breaks and you're blaming the hook company. But people over tension because they're looking for that hook to hold straight and they go too tight. Well, we think we found the balance in that. So you don't have to over tension on your hook, but it holds it perfectly straight for you. So, 28 years of commercial tying, I think I finally got the vise I wanted.
So basically, yeah. So, I mean, you talked a little bit about the tools, which is a huge thing you guys have going, but now this vise is this is the next big thing, right? You guys have going. When is can you talk about, do you have a plan for a launch date when this is going to be out there and all that?
We're starting pre-sales for it in January, and our full production runs should be done by the end of February and shipping in March.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. That's right around the corner. And
yeah.
And it obviously, like the brushes and everything you guys have going, it works well. But who is this vise for? Is this for kind of every fly tire or specific types of fly?
Well,
fly tires?
we designed this thing so that the jaws can go from a size 22 to a 7/0 in the same set of jaws on axis again. So if you've never tried spinning, like spin tying, like Norm Norlander on the Norvise, really taught me some tricks that changed the game in my technique, right? And the idea of being able to spin dubbing onto your thread and then taper up a body by rotating the head instead of your thread changes everything. So to me, it's dry flies, but if you're tying big streamers, this thing will take your game from 15 minutes, 20 minutes of fly down to about 2 to 5 minutes of fly. Especially if you're using our brushes and our new fly fur brushes where it's just got the fur in it. So no mylar or flash or whatever. You just want to put on a nice veil or a collar or, that's been really cool. So yeah, that ability to have a nice heavy head that spins itself just about. It's like going from hand sewing to a sewing machine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounds like. So it's similar. You mentioned the Norvise, so it's similar to that. But what is the big difference between, say, if somebody's who's familiar with that?
It's balance. So when you hit the handle, and listen, there's a lot of great vices out on the market. We just wanted to take a different swing at it. The Norvise is great if all you do is rotate your hook. If that's all you want to do with it, that's great. But when you really want to spin it, those jaws aren't on axis. They're not in the middle. So you get this hard wobble that happens. And while you might be able to get the shank straight so that it spins on axis, the problem is when it's out of balance like that, it actually throws loops in your thread because of that vibration. Which the end result is, and a lot of people won't think about this, the end result is I've got a loose fly, which then can turn more easily on the hook if I'm trying to keep something aligned. But that's only affected when you're trying to go fast, right? And my focus is on commercial tires. But, when you've got that quality of a tool at home and you need to knock out a dozen flies for tomorrow's trip, that's just going to make it a ton easier. And honestly, I just think it's a little prettier to look at. But like, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the Norvise. I've learned a lot on that. It changed my techniques, my styles. Huge fan. I've been tying on Regals, golly, for over 20 years, I think. I love it. And they hold hooks and they do a good job. But you can't spin them. They're just not balanced. The handle flings out and that balance weight that's there is good, but you've only got now weight on two sides instead of all four. Ours is made completely in the round. So there's nothing to go out of balance. There's no levers or handles or anything to spin out on it. And I don't know. We've had a few people tying on our you know demo stuff, and everybody's just come back with like just their heads popping. Like, I didn't think a vice could do this.
That's sweet. So, and you're going to be using this for, and I guess for your team, right? You have people with the materials, but do you have, as far as you folks using this vise as part of your team, are you having plans to do some other stuff?
We've got 75 tires now that are going to be using this tool. So our level of feedback at a commercial level and our ability to respond to that's pretty intense. I don't know that there's another fly tying or jig tying company that is making a vise. And yet, when you're commercially tying, everything you need to know about that. So I think it's pretty cool.
So are you guys tying, so you're tying flies? Talk about that with your fly tying. Are they actually tying, are you selling flies? What's that look like?
Yeah, we're back to tying flies. We teamed up and pulled together a new team that was easier to get through customs and shipping and back and forth. The cost of doing that was just getting crazy. And so we're back to being able to do things with natural products that, like, try shipping a cowtail into a Hindu country.
Not easy.
It doesn't quite work. You're tying with what? A holy animal? What?
Right.
So we finally kind of found something that was a better fit that way for us, and leveraging more of our materials into finished goods. We've been really passionate about just really designing materials that were environmentally friendly, non-toxic processes for our staff. But I think that now working those into finished goods, like I said, we launched Pivot this year. It's our conventional brand. And we're bringing all of these materials that we designed for fly tires into jigs and spinners. So yeah, and having the right tools to do the job and be the most efficient I can, but also something I enjoy, something I like to look at. We think that's important.
Yeah. That's cool. You guys have a lot going on here. Does it feel like where you're at? Do you always feel kind of overwhelmed with everything? It sounds like you have a lot of new stuff, or do you feel more like you're on top of it?
It's never enough for me. You should ask the rest of my team that. I think they would probably say, yeah, we're a little overwhelmed. It's keeping up with Jeff. But we just have so much fun with what, when you get to work, like, we get to design tools for fly tying. Like, that's better than working for Disneyland. Like, it should be the funnest job in the world.
And the vise is another, that just seems like right? Designing a vise, that seems like a pretty challenging thing to do, actually, right? From my end of the spectrum, right? What did that process look like over, it's been going a while, right?
It's been 5 years. And one of the things that kind of sparked in the middle of it for me, have you ever had Jay Nicholas on?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Jay and I go way back. We're great friends. And I'll never forget, we sat up till 2:00 in the morning once in his cabin out in Pacific City, and actually Woods. But we talked about what are the 6 features necessary in a fly tying vise till 2 a.m. Like, we just geeked out. How it holds the hook, what angle should it be able to go into, what shape should the jaws be, like, what should tooling look like, and tensioning, and like, what would we do different if we could design our dream vise? And it really kind of really sparked this. Like, there's always something I'm dissatisfied in, and partially because I'm perpetually dissatisfied, right? Like, that's what I think makes me an innovator, is I'm looking at things and I'm always asking, how could this be better? I can't go to dinner and not pick up a salt shaker and think that somehow this could distribute salt better on my food. And so it's, to me, just having the ability to say, well, if I was going to build a vise and I was going to have a set of tools, what would I do? Well, the first thing we just did in our new V2 for Wasatch, we doubled the handle size in our tools. I'm not some small Asian woman. I have big hands. I shouldn't have to hold it with my pinky out in order to hold the tool. It should fit in my hand like my favorite pen. And that's literally what I did is I grabbed my favorite pen. I'm kind of a pen geek too,
Oh yeah, me too.
off the
Well,
desk. And I'm like, how does this fit in my hand? And how does this feel? And why do I like it? And man, wouldn't I have more control over my tool if I had, more fingers on it? And so we did. We doubled both diameter and length in the tools. So we now have, what I would say American-sized hand tools instead of always doing these, Asian-sized tools. And we just have different size anatomy. But why did we keep it so small? And we think we need small tools because we're working on small things, but that's not really true.
Right. So you changed so basically your tools, you don't have the small kind of tools anymore.
Yeah, we're getting rid of that the version 1 tools. When they're sold out, they're done. We have moved to a full-sized tool handle that just feels good in the hand. Like, and I grabbed a Cross pen, one of my favorite pens, like I said, and just how does it feel in my hand and how does it balance? And if I can do the detail of fine writing with something, I can do the detail of working on a small fly. So that's pretty cool. And then the other cool thing, this is just so much fun. So imagine this, you got a whip finisher, and typically the wire of that whip finisher goes all the way through the handle and it has some nub on the backside, right? So that it can spin as you go around. Well, we've got these micro bearings that we work with in some of our stuff. And I tried making a whip finisher where I put a micro bearing at the front of the handle and the whip finisher spins with the bearing. So literally I can put my thumb on it, hold my whip finisher out to the end of my fly, and I spin the whip finisher rather than taking it around my vise.
Oh, right. So you don't have to wrap it.
You don't have to rotate at all. So that takes any chance of getting a twist in your thread out. It just, and it's quick. Like you just go dink with your thumb and boom, there's 4 turns and you're done. So it's stuff like that. It's like getting to look at it and say, like, we've got the resources, we've got the team to pull it off. Like what would we do if we could? And man, it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Love that. And that's something I definitely want to check out. You got some tools. I'm gonna have to.
We'll get you a set sent over. You got to try them.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned about the oversized because I obviously use pins all the time, and it's funny because the On Point, you probably remember them from back in Portland Community Credit Union. They have those giant pins, right? They always had their big, and I love the giant pin for some reason. I'm like, it's just different, but it fits good, right? And that's kind of the same thing here with your stuff.
Totally. Well, and the other spark to that was I'm like, hey, we've got all this stabilized wood and we're doing pens. And, like, why do we go so skinny? Like, I feel like my thumb cramps up after, like, what if I just increase this diameter here or put a lump in there? And, how ergonomic can I make this pen? And then taking that back out to our tools. And it's been, man, I'm excited. I'm excited for people to get their hands on them. Yeah,
I'm excited too. This is going to be, well, you mentioned one thing too. I wanted to talk in a little bit, just briefly get into some tips on tying faster flies, because I know John Grosta, who was on recently, talked about how much he loves the same thing, cutting off time on his flies. He does the tarpon stuff. Yeah. And, but talk about, again, remind us again on the environmental friendly, because this is a key piece. We've got a lot of sponsors that, and there's the Costas and the Patagonias, everybody out there doing great stuff, and you're doing some great stuff. So talk about how your materials are more environmentally friendly than
yeah. Well, so first thing is everybody thinks that natural products, feathers and furs, are somehow more environmentally friendly. It would be a safe assumption, except when you start to realize the processes that we have to run those things through, like your hackles, we soak them in white gas to take all the fats out of the skin. And then they have to often be bleached. And then we're using toxic dyes and battery acids to get those dyes to go into some of those materials. And then we're flushing those things down to our water treatment plants. And, as we started diving in on flies, saying, hey, how do we start to think differently about our materials in our flies? I mean, we're so far down the rabbit hole on all these things. That we dove into the sciences of it. And I've come to the conclusion, and plenty could probably argue with me, but our synthetic materials are better for the environment than the natural materials. When you buy, bucktails and feathers that have been dyed, our synthetics are better for the environment overall than that. It's everybody wants to talk about, buying a Prius and how much better that is for the environment. Nobody wants to talk about what's going to happen to those batteries in 10 years. So we're kind of looking at the overall picture of things. Biodegradables, like what does that really mean? Well, in most cases, when we say biodegradable around a plastic product, and we say that, okay, well, this thing's going to break down in 30 years, all that means is that's going to become microplastics faster. Is that really better when we're realizing the problem with microplastics? Those things that we try to make like sound all organic and better for our environment actually break down to the worst part of our environment faster. And so, we think things that last and things that are recycled are a better approaches for it. This is the conclusion we've come to. So our mylars and acetates, that's the plastic reflective materials we tie with, nylons, instead of using battery acid. So let's just talk about like flash. You buy some flash, right?
Yeah, the flash, like Flash Shabu or any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's got this beautiful sheen to it. It's got this deep, rich color to it. Well, here's how that happens. The clear or reflective mylars come as virgin plastic in most cases. That comes to a facility where it is dipped into big tanks of water that are heated with flame. So you get varying degrees of breaking that plastic down for the parts that are on the bottom versus the top, right? Heat is obviously, it's very thin stuff. It's very heat sensitive. So first we're starting to break down that material already. Secondly, we add in battery acid to that water to open up the pores of the plastic. Wow. Okay. And then we pour in toxic dyes and then dip it in fresh water to close those pores back up and trap the dyes into those materials. Okay, that's the industry standard. You look across the fly tying wall, that's 90% of that wall. That's what that's gone through. Okay.
Wow.
So we just these things, like you don't know what you don't know about it until you start diving in. Like, how did this happen? And you show up on location and you watch people do this and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. All of that's going down the drain to the water treatment plant. How does the water treatment plant deal with that? Well, some of the stuff they don't. That ends up back in our drinking water. Our rivers, our lakes. So we kind of backed up the bus. We found a supply for 90% recycled mylars and acetates. So mylars have the reflective, acetates are usually translucent. And then we said, well, okay, is battery acid the only option? And everybody, in the dye industry said, no, you have to use these dyes and you have to use battery acid. I'm like, okay, but what if I play with the variables? So we found a better way to manage the temperature more evenly in a tank of temperature control. By affecting temperature control, I can manage how my materials respond to it. But more importantly, I can manage time. If I hold it and I don't go past a certain temperature, think of a sous vide steak, right? Like I can't overcook it because I can set the temperature that is that max temperature, that perfect temperature. Well, we look at our materials the same way. And then we found an EPA certified non-toxic dye. And I said, will this work on plastics? And they're like, no, won't work on plastics. I'm like, well, send it to me anyways. I have to try. So we have replaced battery acid with citric acid. We've been able to play with time and temperature. So we've got a 90% recycled product for starters. We have completely EPA certified non-toxic dye process that is more color fast and more rich because I'm able to hold that temperature and that impact for longer. And citric acid is an amazing molecule. The things that it can do, and now we're all natural in that. Like it makes a better product, and it's more environmentally friendly. And that's the kind of stuff we're doing. So that's what's in our brushes. That's what's in our finished flies. Is really rethinking those materials for ourselves and controlling that.
Wow. And and leading on this, right? That's one of those things where, you'll probably down the line, I'm sure if right, there's going to be other people that will be. How do you look at that when you see people, I guess you've got the tech that you're working on there, but if you saw everybody change in the industry into more of your style,
it'd be great. It'd be great. Yeah. That's, we certainly will hold some things proprietary and some things that we think get a better product out. But at the end of the day, I would like to see everybody stop flushing that stuff down our waterways.
Exactly. Well, that's cool. No, I mean, it's more than cool. That is such a great thing you guys are working on. That's why I love, kind of having you guys on this year and stuff, because I mean, for us, it's all about, that's such a big part. Everything we do, we're always trying to think, okay, how do we connect with the companies like yourself that are doing the good stuff? So,
and we're terrible at telling our story. And this is why this kind of helps us. Like, we don't talk about these kinds of details very often.
Exactly.
But we're really passionate. I mean, it's like what fuels us in the back end is like, what new materials can we use? How do we go all bio? We've eliminated lead. Our pivot line that I keep talking about, the conventional side of what we do, is we've eliminated lead in fishing lures. We came up with a process that uses bismuth and a high density plastic to keep lead out of our waterways. So we're innovating by asking good questions, right? Like that's how all innovation starts, is ask a good question.
Nice. Yeah. And we'll follow up on another episode on more of this, because I want to do, we could probably just have a whole episode on, the environmental piece, right? Everything you guys are doing and what, you'll be doing in the future. But I want to just touch briefly on the speed, maybe a couple of tips here on somebody tying, because I know John talked about this. A lot of people talk about not only the brushes, but the fly fur, the durability. If somebody's, and I guess you could throw in your vise too now, but if somebody has some of your materials, some of your brushes, talk about how do people tie, some tips on tying a quicker fly. Is it literally just getting the right tools?
No, well, it's like anything else, right? A skilled carpenter can do a lot with a chisel. I think that the thing that I spend the most time on teaching when I teach is getting good muscle memory before you start thinking about tying flies. It's like, if you want to learn how to cast well, don't go out and try to cast over trout. Like, you're focused on trying to catch a trout. You're not focused on your cast. If you want to be a better caster, get off the river and go practice. And so the first thing that I do, like when we're training new tyers, we spend the first 2 or 3 days just wrapping thread on a shank. That's it. That's all they get to do and it sounds boring as heck. But I tell you what, by the end of those 3 days, they can wrap from the front to the back of a shank. I can put on my glasses and not see the shank through those wraps, not one overlap. They're tight, they're all the way back, and they're fast. So they've got to be able to do it in 3 seconds and get all the way back. Those little drills, those little things that, like, if I literally want to be a faster tyer, if you were to stop and practice the muscle memory of each of those pieces, that's actually more important than the tool. If I stop to think about the turns that I put into my thread, if I stop to think about the tension that I put in there, a few years ago, I think I told you I ran an experiment of flies with glue and flies without glue. So when you talk about speed, you got to get good first, and then you can get fast.
Yeah.
And to me, it's muscle memory. I mean, commercial tyers tie 10 dozen a day. That's 120 flies a day that they can tie a size 18 elk hair caddis's.
Repetition.
It's repetition. They get fast because they're doing that same fly. But if you really want to know, practice your techniques, practice tails, and just do an evening of tying in tails and just cutting it back out, tie in a tail and cut it back. You'll find that all of a sudden that muscle memory starts to kick in.
That's right. We'll talk about this too, because maybe with the brushes, let's talk about that. Let's say if somebody's sitting down
here, things up.
Yeah. So if you had a brush right now, let's say somebody grabs some of your brushes and they're going to tie. Let's just do a steelhead fly. We just got off of the steelhead owie trip. So how would that person describe how they would use your fly fur to tie this fly, like a steelhead fly, your favorite one?
Totally. Yeah. My steelhead magnet fly is literally just one turn of a brush. We put in, these fancy tails, and we want to do intruders with, wrapped bodies. And then we come up and we do a wing and a thorax and some fancy head. Fish doesn't see all of that. Like, if you really just want to go catch fish, like, this isn't going in bins or into glass boxes. This is just going to go catch fish. Like, take one turn of our brushes. And this is important too. People tend to think that more material, it's kind of like ibuprofen, right? More ibuprofen is more better. More material is going to catch more fish. It's not really true. Really more sparse. And it's tough to force us. It's tough to convince people of that. But the idea is every one of our brushes is already, every material is weighed to the thousandth of an ounce before it goes into a brush. These are handmade. These are not machine made brushes. So our controls, the other thing is the quality of length. So that amount of material has to fit in exactly 12 inches. It's a quarter inch over, a quarter inch under, or it fails. So the idea behind the brush is the exact right proportion in one turn.
And by one turn, you mean you got thread on there. Describe how you get one turn.
Yeah, you tie it in. You pick it up just like you would, a hack hole. You palmer it back. You pull those materials back. You go one turn all the way around and back down, and you tie that off. And it is the precision right amount of materials for that fly. And can you dress it all day long? Get as fancy as you want. Grab some fly fur and tie in a chunk for a tail, and then take a turn of a brush. And then, what we do is I like to use the under fur that I pull out. And we don't have a lot of under fur in our fly fur, but that little bit, it's really fine and soft. And so what I'll do is I'll create a dubbing loop. I'll put that fly fur back in that I use for my tail, take that under fur, stick that in a dubbing loop, spin it up. There's my collar, tie it off, I'm done. And I'm catching fish, like a lot of fish, easy. And it didn't take me 45 minutes of fly to go out and lose it in my first cast in a tree, because that's usually where my first cast goes.
Yeah, we had a few of those this week too.
I'm sure.
We had a pretty cool event, the Steelhead School, which was on. We're going to be doing this again this year, and we had a number of different flies, all sorts of like steelhead fishing, right? All sorts of different colors. But one fly that worked really well was like just basically a pink, kind of a pink brushy, like it'd be like a fly fur, right? Kind of on the head, and then to be just the brush, right? Just kind of a, either kind of intruder style or maybe one station, really simple. And you're right, sparse. So what would that fly talk about? Like if I want to go right now to your website, grab the actual materials to tie that fly, which is, kind of maybe the one you mentioned or something really simple. What would that be? Could we just go there now and grab that?
Yeah, you can just go there right now and grab it. For what you just described, I would grab some of our purple fly fur for a tail. I would put the Steely shrimp pink brush in front of that, and I would use that purple under fur as my collar to finish it. That's it. Done.
That's it. So in the fly fur, we had another guest, and again, we're starting to get some of the, I'm trying to think now. We'll put links to all the guests we've had on that have talked a little bit about in the show notes about the fly fur. But that's one of the things they mentioned on, I know that one of those episodes was the durability. So that's something you guys, right? So you put this on there, it's not going to be kind of getting, how this fly is going to last for a while.
Well, the idea was to replace marabou, right? Marabou's inconsistent. I wanted something that gave more movement than buck tail wood, and kind of had that movement like marabou in the water, so that I could move that to a synthetic. So that fiber, our fly fur, again, that's proprietary. We didn't just go buy a bunch of craft fur off of some, stuffed teddy bear. It like literally went in and said, the fiber needs to be this long. I want the follicle to have this diameter. I want this texture on it. And it needs to be able to hold Pantone colors to this, to spec. And toxic dye processes, even in how we do that. And that fly fur, that's the stuff that sells the most for us, actually. Is it doesn't matter where in the world you tie. I mean, we sell that into Australia and the EU and the UK. Obviously the Canadians love it. It's just different than your standard craft fur, because it was designed for how it works in the water.
Gotcha. So when you tie this with your flies, with like you're describing the fly fur, the brushes, can you make, again, the intruder is a very popular style where it's really sparse but has a big profile. Does your stuff, could you make an intruder that type of fly, that type of movement?
Oh yeah. And it's always funny when we say intruder type, like, what does that mean? Well, it means I've got a shorter fiber tail with a bump behind it that flares it out, right? Well, if I put a little bit of fly fur in a dubbing loop and I take that around like the brush and palmer it back, that will cause my material to flare out without having to put the proverbial bump behind it. I'm going to get that teardrop shape when it gets wet, which is really what we're looking for, right? Like, everything those predators, that's right. Everything those predatory fish eat is in the shape of a teardrop, if you think about it. Squid, shrimp, bait fish. So it's getting that flare in the front and getting it to go back. So technique, how I work with the material is as important as the material itself. And then the tools just make that technique easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, this is great. And I think we should send them. I mean, if people wanted to watch this, maybe some videos, where would you send people to see some of this happening?
I did some stuff for Anglers Trading Post. I think I did a fly about 4 years ago called the Steelhead Magnet. And there's things I've changed since then and what I've done. We're going to be doing some more stuff. And I guess something I can announce here too is we're going to start a fly tying masterclass. And I'm going to dive. This is not for the person that just wants to learn how to tie a caddis. This is for the person that wants to get to the point where they could design their own flies at some point. All the way from here's tools. How do I think about tools? Let's do a deep dive on thread. And a lot of the information's out there in bits and pieces, but you can't find this tip to tail piece of content that literally it's the curriculum I take my commercial tires through when I train them for everybody to try. Yeah, be watching for that. We'll certainly be sending you the link. We're beginning filming on that. And it's going to be deep dives and geeking out on like the same thing, the conversation on the vise. Like, what is it that I love and hate about this vise and that vise? And not just our own stuff, because like I said, I mean, in our industry, we've got some cool products and some things that people have thought through for specific things. We appreciate good engineering.
This is going to be great. You got some good stuff coming. That was going to be one of my questions, just looking ahead into the next year. And you mentioned the steelhead magnet fly. Was that the? Yeah. So I just popped it up and Googled it. So guess who pops up? Steelhead magnet fly tying video. Jay Nicholas from the Cast Fly Shop.
Figures.
So that
he stole it. He stole it from me.
I'll throw that in the show notes. Jay also, I think he was episode number 3, literally, like when we first started. It was pretty cool.
What an amazing person.
Yeah, that guy, I'll tell you what, talking about steelhead, that guy, I fished with him once, and we were on the Deschutes, and I mean, I'm not kidding you, the entire trip, everybody else, takes little breaks. Jay, I don't think he took barely a break to eat the entire trip. He was fishing the whole trip.
No, he doesn't eat. He grabs a tuna fish sandwich in the morning and goes all day. But that guy will throw down twice as many casts as me, and I think he's got 30 years on me.
Yeah.
Right. He's an animal. We used to fish the Nestucca a lot together.
Nice.
That's probably one of the greatest things I miss having left the Northwest is time with Jay.
Yeah, time with Jay, exactly. See, it's good. It's cool you say that because you're in an area that sounds really cool as well, right? So
it's a whole new game.
Miss more the people, right? It's a new game and good people.
Great people. I mean, we love it here, and this community has embraced us. It's kind of fun after 30 years as salmon, trout, and steelhead guide to all of a sudden geek out over redfish and bass. And it's relearning. I'm relearning everything. It's a lot of fun. That's
great. Yeah, there's such a cool time, with the way fly fishing is. We talk a lot about this, but there's just so many species and they're everywhere and people are trying new things. And I think that's what's cool about you guys, right? You're trying new stuff too. So there's lots of, all your tools and the way you're mixing it up, I think is going to fit well with all these new tires that are coming into these new fly anglers, right? It's not just the old white guy anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the greats have taught us techniques. I think that it's been a while since we've revisited the techniques of tying flies and rethinking how we do it. Like, I think Flyman Fish Company did a great job when they came out with the fish skulls. Like, that was a different way of weighting flies and thinking about it. That brought new techniques to the table. We want to be part of that too. And I think we're doing some cool stuff.
Good. Well, I think, that we just, touched the surface here. We're going to get you back on and do a little more of a deep dive, but we wanted to highlight this giveaway we're doing. And so at wetflyswing.com/giveaway, we're doing this basically you're giving away, let's talk about that really quick. So you're giving away a $100 gift certificate. And is that to just go on and buy any of this stuff we're talking about here, any of these materials?
Any of them. Yeah. I think that's good for anything on Zag.Fish, I think is how that went. To be honest with you, Chris has really been managing that. Chris Allen, he's our rock star.
Chris is on, and we're going to have Chris on as we do this, and we'll talk more about there because we're going to do a live event coming up next week. I'm going to sit down with Chris. We're going to have some of the people who have entered already the giveaway, and then we're going to announce the winner live. So that winner on that
exciting.
event will win. And then we always tend to do some bonus stuff there. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll also talk a little bit about, everything you guys, this whole thing and moving ahead. So I'm excited about that. The other bonus here is that we're actually giving away a local trip, which is something pretty exciting. So we're going to, this is a pretty fun, again, trying to mix it up, right? So whoever wins, we're going to find out wherever they're from, and we are going to give away a guided trip to that person.
Sweet. That's
awesome. And they're going to get a thing with the podcast. We're going to have them come on the show and be a co-host on this podcast. So it's a pretty cool, it's not, we call this the mini giveaway because we do these larger events for our Steelhead School, which we're going to be doing with you guys next year as well. But I love these little mini giveaways because it's just our chance to give a little more value, right, to everybody out there.
Yeah, just keep it engaged. Keep it engaged and keep the conversation going and try stuff. That's great. That's exciting.
Okay. All right, Jeff, well, we'll send everybody out, as always, Zag.Fish. And that's still your hub, right? You've got all this going. So if somebody wants to get fair flies or the tools, Zag.Fish is the spot, right?
They do, yeah. So little change that we've made in this. We're actually just kind of struck some bigger partnerships for distribution and whatnot. So Zag.Fish should be directing you to where you can buy it. AnglersTradingPost.com picked up 100% of everything we carry. Everything we make. And so that's going to be your easiest place here over the next few weeks. That transition is taking place and getting everything up there. You'll find some of your other favorite brands there as well. We're really excited about what's happening there.
Also is Fairflies, I can't even remember now, fairflies.com, is that URL?
Yeah, Fairflies just kind of takes you to the landing page on Zag.Fish. Just kind of, we're trying to consolidate some brands and pull some things together. And if you go to Zag.Fish, you'll see more of what we're doing, across the fishing industry. We've got some other exciting brands that are launching this year, like Hull. I think we talked about that before. Our new composites team that we've spun up. And we're just, like I said, having fun.
You got some good stuff going in, and you're trying to basically, not just the fly angler, but all anglers. And we had while we were out there in Steelhead Alley this week, there was lots of center pin, right, guys fishing out there, right? So you got that, and you had the guys just doing some like the egg, doing the conventional stuff. So I mean, we talked to those guys out there. We ran into one guy who basically had been listening to the podcast, right, just rambling on the river. But so, I think it's more about the fishing. I think that's what you guys are looking at, right? It's more about just all fishing.
It's about the whole community of fishing. Anglers, just people that want to get on the water, the relationships that are built there. We just don't think that it should be so segregated. We really want to kind of tie it back together. So bringing fly materials into jigs and spinners, like, hey, let's bridge it, because you may never try fly fishing and stick with the spinning reel and a jig. You're still going to catch a lot of fish, and you're still going to get out there and experience.
Are you going to catch more fish?
That's always it depends on the day, right? It depends on the day. I mean, like I used to fish every Monday with a good friend of mine back there in Oregon, and it was just the two of us every Monday. And he's a bait chucker. And he called me the feather chucker, and he's the bait chucker, and we're like grumpy old men in the boat, just ribbing on each other. Some days, him with bait or him with just drifting a jig under under a bobber, would crush it, and I'd get a bite. Other days, I'd be crushing it on the swing, and he wouldn't get a bite. And it just, it's the right tool for the day and the time. It's not just about one technique. It's about having multiple techniques in our bag when we go to the water for success.
That's it. And and just highlight again, we were just coming off such a high with this last trip, but Jeff Liskey was our guide. And, there were places we went to, and he knows that area better, as well as anybody. And there were areas we were fishing, the water was off color, and it was actually better for swinging than it was for nymphing, like flies or anything, right? So there was this thing where, it's actually can be better, and that's what you're talking about.
Change your technique. I just went for a week in Port St. Joe. And we're redfish and sea trout was kind of our target, right? And what a killer bay. Wow. The Forgotten Coast. Everybody else just forget I even said it. It's the coolest spot ever. But like, you got this entire bay that's like less than 3 feet deep. And it's just stuck full of everything you can imagine. I mean, it's like this huge estuary. We're catching, barely inside of slot reds, 26, 27-inch reds all day long. We're limiting out in the first 2 hours going out. But it was tossing a jig behind a popping cork. One of our jigs with a soft plastic on it behind a popping cork, which kept it above the grass. And, the fish were sitting down in the grass along the open holes and ambushing them. And it was crushing. I'm like, okay, this is more fun than I've had with a spinning reel in a long time. It was a kick. I'm like, okay, now let's try putting a fly behind it. And they were crushing that, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to break out my rod and reel. Everybody in the boat has, they got their fill. Now it's my turn to get up and play. And snook and trout and redfish in the middle of a bay, not along the edges where you would normally think to chase them, because it's just this massive estuary. But, playing with the different technique, like having it all in your back pocket. I learned new things. I'd never tossed a popping cork before.
Yep.
Our guide had to teach me. Like, okay, sweet, let's learn it.
That works. Nice, Jeff. Well, this is a lot of fun. I definitely going to have to cut this one off, and we'll rekindle this one on a future episode. We'll follow up on this, but we'll send everybody out. Like we said, we've got a couple of links here, and for the giveaway, I'll have a link in the show notes so everybody can enter that. That's kind of what we're focusing on this week. And I just want to thank you for spending some time here, and looking forward to that next episode. And I appreciate everything you're doing for the environment and everything out there in fly tying.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. It's always fun getting to come on and have a conversation with you. So keep it up. Keep up the good work.
So there you go. wetflyswing.com/giveaway. The best chance. There'll be a link in the show notes for your chance to win this local trip. $100 gift certificate from Zag, a co-hosted opportunity on this podcast, and some other goodies right now. We're going to be giving this away tomorrow night live, and you can check that out just by entering wetflyswing.com/giveaway. This is your last chance today. Jump in and win. I can tell you from the guided trip I had recently, if you win this, it's going to be a game changer. If you haven't been on a guided trip in the past, I can tell you just from our experience, we were out with Jeff Liskay and the crew this last week, and it was pretty epic on what we had going and just taking everything up to the next level. We were focusing on steelhead and spay, and even though I've steelhead fished for many years, the guide and that experience was pretty much a game changer. So I'm hoping to do that for somebody out here who wins this. I hope that's you. I'm going to be rolling out here pretty quick and want to get on to the next thing and get prepped for this giveaway. I'm actually going to be firing this up here after I get off here and getting everything ready for tomorrow night. And I hope you have a chance to join us on this big giveaway. It's going to be a lot of fun and going to be great to surprise somebody. And actually, we always have a few bonuses. We always like to give away a few bonus products. So if you join that, I'm sure there's going to be some things on top of the big giveaway that we're going to be shooting out somewhere to somebody. I'm going to leave it there. And I want to say good luck to you. And I want to say that I hope right now you are having a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. And connect with me online or on the river, I hope, if you win this trip. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.